Hi guys, I'm Hannah. I'm the Sustainable Ag Officer for Hunter LLS based in Taree. We're doing our seasonal conditions update a little bit differently this time and doing it via video. That way we can hopefully reach some more people, and it's a bit of a resource you can look back on before we catch up again after Christmas. You're going to hear from some of us, the team at LLS, from our agronomy team, our livestock officer and vet, and we've also brought in a couple of extras from RFS, from the sale yards and the processors at Wingham, who will be giving a bit of a rundown of what we're seeing in terms of seasonal conditions and markets and what to expect over the summer period. As you're all, I'm sure, aware, it's still bloody dry here, and look, we're hoping it will change as we move into the December period and January, but just be aware to start making some plans now, if you haven't already, about what to do if these dry conditions continue. If you want to jump on our Farming Forecaster website, and we've got some probes located around the district from the coast over to here at Gloucester, and we've also got a range of locations from some dairy areas to some more hilly country, so you can get a bit of a sense of what's going on in the different landscapes that we've got here in the Manning. All the probes are really showing that we are dry. As we move closer to the coast, we are seeing a bit more subsurface moisture, but we definitely are looking for at least a couple of inches to really get growth going. So just keep that in mind as you're making your grazing plans and stocking plans, making sure that you're keeping enough cover on that ground so that when it does rain, it can really jump away and you can start growing some fresh green feed.
Hi, my name's Peter Beale. I'm with Local Land Services at Taree. I'm part of the new Climate Smart Agriculture project, which we'll be developing here. Just talking about seasonal conditions in the last 2 months. We know we have had very dry conditions, and with that the temperatures have increased quite substantially through late October, early November. And we're seeing with that an evaporation of paddock feed, but also an increase in insect activity. There's been very high armyworm damage in the south coast, and we're also seeing some of that here. Fall armyworm has been identified on seedling maize, and that looks, that sort of says to us that if it's high numbers now, we're starting to see it early, then that's something that could build up over the season, and we need to be keeping an eye on that. We will be putting out some rapid aim monitoring in the region just to help us monitor fall armyworm numbers through this season. Armyworms tend to build up through the season, and if the conditions are favourable, they've got forage to eat, they will build up, and the hotter the temperatures, the quicker that cycle will be. So it could be a bad year for them. Last year certainly wasn't. We had a lot of rain, cooler conditions, and we really didn't see a great deal of activity, but it's certainly something we've got to watch out for, and that will be something to look out for, particularly in February when we're March going into sowing ryegrass. Pasture dieback has been found in the region just recently, in the southern part of the region. There's a number of sightings of it through the Hunter, and it's certainly found up around Kempsey. So it's quite likely we'll find more of it and keep you informed as to just how it develops and how we manage that in the longer term. So what we're looking for in pasture dieback is just actually dying off areas of mainly summer grasses. We see it in Soteria, Kikuyu in particular, and often in ungrazed areas. So if you do find or observe that, we'd love to know. Please ring us and we'll come out and do a check. And certainly we're learning just how much of a threat it is. It's a problem in the north, but it may not be as big a problem in the south because of our cooler temperatures. It's something we've got to get our understanding and learn how to manage it in the long run. We have come through a really dry period, and certainly like the tap's been switched off. It's not unusual for that to happen. It's a little bit later this year, and certainly we'd love to have seen rain, significant rainfall by November. So we're late, but it is very possible to be getting 50 or 80 mils of rain in late November, early December, and it can really bring us out of a hole. That happens quite often. Nonetheless, rainfall between November and February is very variable. We can go through dry periods, particularly in January, and what we're really looking at is feed supplies that are going to carry us, are they going to carry us through till February when we're more likely to get rain?
Teresa Hogan here, Livestock Officer for Hunter Local Land Services with a livestock update. You'd be forgiven for thinking that this was a pretty tough season to manage. Weather conditions right across the region have not been what we expected them to be, and the hot, dry conditions with low rainfall that we are currently experiencing has dried our pastures out. We are not seeing the pasture growth that we would normally expect at this time of year. We have a lot of dry stand feed sitting in the area, but we don't have a lot of green, actively growing feed. It would seem that our winter feed gap that we normally experience has now extended well into spring, and if rainfall doesn't come and good moisture filling the soil profile, it is likely we will see this feed gap extend right into summer. A feed gap is where the feed that we have available to our livestock, whether that be the pasture or some feed we're putting in front of them, does not meet the nutritional requirements. And this is when we need to consider some form of supplementary feeding to boost our livestock's nutrition. To keep animals under production conditions, we need to feed accordingly. We need to understand the class of livestock that we're feeding and their nutritional requirements, knowing that our young growing stock and our reproductive stock will require a higher amount of feed than our dry stock for maintenance. We need to know exactly what we're feeding and what we're going to feed them. So we need to get out in the paddock and make sure what's sitting in the paddock is adequate, and in most cases, when it's not, what are we going to feed? In order to make sure that we're meeting the nutritional requirements, we need to balance the energy and protein in the feed that we're putting in front of them. This requires us to be prepared and making decisions early to, one, make sure that we have enough feed to get our animals through a dry period, but also we need to make sure that we can source that feed on a regular basis if we cannot afford or have the infrastructure set up to buy it in bulk. As conditions continue to warm up into summer, it's also important to remember that water quality and availability is just as important as the feed that we're putting in front of them. If the water quality or availability is not adequate for our livestock, it will have implications for their production. If livestock do not have access to cool, clean drinking water, it is likely that their feed consumption will go down on a hot day. So whilst out checking our pastures and monitoring our livestock health, it's also a good idea to keep an eye on that water, making sure that there's enough in front of them to get through a warm day. As things continue to warm moving into summer, it's important that we provide enough shade for our livestock. We don't want our livestock out grazing in the hottest parts of the day, so we want them to give them the option to seek shade. Trees are obviously our best option, but if we don't have trees available and we've put in some man-made structures, please make sure that they have enough ventilation. Livestock require that air movement to keep cool. If this video has raised any questions or concerns about your livestock business, please do not hesitate to get in touch with the local land services. We're more than happy to help you with livestock condition and pasture assessment, as well as helping you to make some of these decisions to make the season ahead of us a little bit easier.
Hi, I'm Anna, local district vet at Taree. At the moment, the main health issues we're seeing are probably nutritional based and still a few worm and liver fluke issues from the wet season. I think we're probably going to start to see flies picking up again, so buffalo fly, although it's been quite dry. If we get a little bit of summer rain, which we hopefully do, that'll start to kick off again. So buffalo fly, and obviously 3-day sickness is probably going to start to tick around later on in summer too. You're often going to see heavier animals more affected. Because we didn't have a huge 3-day season last year, we might see the younger animals weren't exposed last year and they'll be having some more more serious effects, but it's going to be nursing, talking to your local vet about anti-inflammatories are probably the main things. You're always going to be looking at under 2 years old, so younger animals are going to be mainly affected by worms. Occasionally, if you've got something that's in a poor condition, so a lactating cow or something that's in having other issues, you might see it in that, but generally it's going to be younger animals. Combination drenches are the current advice, so you want something that's got several different chemical actives in the one product is the current recommendation. If we do get a sudden break of green conditions, then we want to look out for things like bloat, especially if there's clovers in the pasture, and any sudden change in feed. You just want to make ssure your cattle are up to date with their 5N1 clostridial vaccinations. If you're selling things through the sale yards, just make sure you have your NVD filled out, that everything is tagged with an LIS tag, and that it's fit to load. If you've got any worries about that, contact us or your local vet for advice.
Superintendent Hugo Talone, District Manager for MidCoast Rural Fire Service. The seasonal conditions have been a little bit varied, unfortunately. We've had a lot of rain early in the piece, and with the drying conditions of late, we've seen some fire activity. Not as fire behaviour hasn't been extreme fire behaviour. It's been actually a pretty good hazard reduction conditions. But unfortunately, when it does get into some of the drier areas, fire is taking a good run. We have the fortunate that creeks are still maintaining moisture. So when fire gets into that area, they are sort of peating around. Our main concern is probably, I suppose, south of Taree and west to Gloucester. And also we've got the coastal heath of the coastline as well. The coastal heath is still maintaining some green vegetation, which is good for us. But as we've seen down south in the last few days, weeks, we've had some fires around the Karua, North Arm Cove and the Pindima areas, which is of concern. Those areas are because it's in the focus area of the risk plan, and we need to address those as best we can with hazard reductions. Probably about 40% of our hazard reductions completed. A lot of them up north as well, but also down south. We'd like to do a lot more, obviously, but conditions are starting to dry out quicker than we'd like, and that would be outside of prescription. So we're going to try and take the window of opportunity as we can to do these, but unfortunately, time and space is against particular landholders. They should be looking at their own properties and make sure that they have areas where they can cut fires off if it does escape from a pile burn or a hazard reduction if they're doing one in their area. Also, ensure you get a permit. Please get a permit before you light a fire on your property. And that way we have a knowledge and a location of where the fire is. But also, in preparatory areas, make sure that you can have fire breaks, whether it be mineral earth or slash lines, and also have a farm fire unit or a trailer full of water with an operational pump on board. That would greatly assist in putting fires out.
Yeah, Dave Callaughan on behalf of Gooch Agencies. Our last sale dates for Gooch Agencies for 2025. The 8th of December at Taree will be our last Taree sale for this year. The 18th of December at Gloucester will be our last store sale for 2025. In the new year, in 2026, will be 5th of January at 2026, and the following Thursday at Gloucester will be their first sale for the year for the Gloucester store sale. Look, we're in for a very dry time as in cattle coming through the yards. We've seen a lot of cattle showing the effects of the season at the moment. Unfortunately, it's gone very dry, very hot, and look, all along the weather forecasters are predicting it to stay dry and be hot conditions probably for the next 2 to 3 months. What we're seeing in the yards is cattle already that are showing the effects of the season, the hot, dry weather. Look, good cattle are still selling very well, like your good quality cattle and good condition cattle are still selling very well. It's your plainer, lighter condition cattle that are showing the effects of the season that are taking the hit at the moment, and unfortunately that's just the way it is with the way the season is. We are still seeing buyers active in the area. Look, as I say, the good quality cattle, we've seen very good strong competition on your processors, on good cattle, on whether it be heavy cows or bullocks, and good feeder steers and good feeder heifers. We're seeing very strong competition there. It's your lighter restockers, and as per usual, it's your lighter heifers are the first ones to drop off in a market the way it is at the moment. Look, if producers are still going to hang on to their cattle for the moment, and the main thing they've got to take into account is the number of cattle they've got, whether they deem they're going to have enough feed to hold those cattle. Look, if they're going to second guess themselves and think that they might get through, I would probably suggest that they probably should destock whilst the market's still sort of holding. I don't know what the market's going to do by the time we get into January if we don't get any rain. I think you'll probably find a lot of producers wishing they had it offloaded earlier. So, look, I've seen it happen before where they've probably left it too late to destock. You might be better off making that move early with all the long-term weather forecasters predicting this hot, dry weather. In regards to looking after your cattle and presenting your cattle for the sale yards, drench, I find drench is very important. And look, in this time of the year, you're going to see a lot of ticks, and ticks will take play a big part in knocking around the condition of your cattle. It is important to keep the drench up to them. If you are intending to buy feed in, and you do buy feed in, it's going to come at a cost the further this goes on. But as I say, you probably would be better off restocking. But when it comes to drenching, yes, I would be drenching your cattle to try and present them as best possible. I'd just like to thank everyone for their cattle sales throughout 2025, and I really wish everyone a happy and safe Christmas and a great new year, and look forward to what 2026 brings.
Stephen Moy, Livestock Manager, Wingham Beef Exports. So our last kill here will be on Thursday the 18th of December, and we'll reopen on Monday the 6th of January for normal production. I guess it's probably been a tale of two stories, I guess. We've seen a lot of local cattle probably that are still showing the effects of flooding, and cattle that probably haven't really met their potential, and then we're seeing a lot of tablelands, grass-fed cattle that have been outstanding, coming off crop, and high quality pastures in the New England right down through the northwest. So yeah, there's been a lot of very good grass-fed cattle, and then we've seen also some cattle still that do show some flood effects and a hard winter period. At this point in time, most people are probably trying to get back into normal production. So it's been a difficult period for them. Probably people are trying to get some summer crop in, some millet or some forage crop. I think that probably if they can finish their cattle on that, look for some rain over this Christmas New Year period, and then probably most people will be trying to turn off before the autumn. So we probably need to look at that and aim your cattle for those good grass-fed brands that we have. Manning Valley Natural, our Wingham Blue programs. The premium end is probably where the market is at. Obviously cows have been very good all year, and in the last 3 or 4 months it's been extremely good. So anybody that's got any cows that are boarders, they probably need to look at getting rid of those. Hydatids have been probably, they've been around for sure this year. Liver fluke's another big one, obviously. So we're seeing those sort of things. Just producers be really aware, dog bites, any of those sort of things that are going to downgrade carcass quality. Obviously they happen, but yeah, just try and minimise any of those sorts of issues. Buffalo fly season coming up, so make sure you've got tags in and you've got your cattle under control, so as they're going to reach their genetic potential and also reach their best potential. Welfare is a big thing at the moment, and if they're not fit to truck, they're not fit to truck. You know, don't tell the carrier, just put it on a take at the meat works and deal with it, because it gets here and it becomes a problem for us. Once vets become involved and things like that, reports have to be done. So if they're not fit to truck, please do not send them. Also, you know, we have a 5 p.m. curfew here now, so if you can get your cattle here early, we'll get them settled in, get them on water, get them under shade, so that really gets your cattle set up best for processing the following day. And just make sure that, yeah, you've got them booked in. You know, if we go into this dry period now and we do start to stretch out in the bookings, yeah, you can't just ring up and get a booking overnight. So just get your year planned a bit, have some thoughts about where you're going to go with the marketing of your cattle, and yeah, if you want to discuss any of that, give us a call. Yeah, on behalf of Wingham Beef Exports, just like to thank all the local producers and producers from away that continue to support our business and send us good quality livestock.
I'm Tia McIntyre from Local Land Services. We're approaching the end of the New South Wales Government Short-Term Recovery Support Service, the RRS, which closes on Thursday the 4th of December 2025. If you're a primary producer who was impacted by the May 2025 East Coast severe weather event and need help accessing disaster assistance, please contact us before this date. After the 4th of December, recovery-specific services will no longer be available, but you can still find support through New South Wales Disaster Assistance Finder or local support service finder tool, Ask Izzy.
So as we've heard, there's a fair bit still going on as we wrap up the end of the year. Some considerations we need to make for both our pastures and our livestock health. We've got some opportunity in the market, as we've heard, so make sure we utilise those opportunities if it fits our operation. Make sure you get in contact with us at LLS. We're always more than happy to have a chat, whether it's about animal health issues or pasture, or any of your production questions as well. As we look towards the new year, we do have some exciting opportunities coming up in terms of small farm series, which is looking at giving an opportunity to our smaller landholders and hobby farm type landholders to learn about some land management. We're ranging from poultry integration, espalier and composting and swale design. We're also running our Design Your Farm series in conjunction with MidCoast Council, Landcare and Reinventing Agriculture. We ran this series this year in 2025 and had a great group of producers come together and start looking at how to assess their farm and start putting a bit of a plan behind what they do with managing it and setting it up for the future. So we're kicking that off again in March 2026. Regos will be live very shortly, and if you're interested, please make contact with myself to get in on that. We also have our ProGraze course currently running in the Manning, which is a great series of workshops where we look at grazing management, understanding pastures and animal requirements. So if you're interested in doing anything like that, whether you're a seasoned producer or new, it's a great opportunity to link in with people and some of the professionals in LLS to get a good idea of livestock management and pasture management. So if you're interested in doing that course, again, touch base and we can make sure you're in on the next session. Thank you very much, and have a good Christmas.